He thought I'd crumble. That's the fantasy men like him always have, that betrayal lands softly. That shock looks good on us. Noah Brandt was an architect, which made sense. He'd always preferred structures over people. His lies were built with clean lines, elegant deceit, everything just stable enough to hold. When I found out about her, I didn't scream. I sketched. That's what I do when I'm deciding how something should collapse. It started small. A misplaced perfume bottle. A receipt for a dinner he never ate with me. The cliché of clichés, hotel rooms and half-truths. But what fascinated me wasn't the cheating itself. It was how well he believed his own performance. That's when I realized, fidelity wasn't the currency of our relationship. Believability was. So I began to lie too, beautifully, quietly, with precision. I told him I'd gotten a new project at work. I didn't. I told him my late nights were deadlines. They weren't. I told him I forgave him. I hadn't. My real job was rebuilding the scaffolding of us while digging the foundation out from underneath. The woman he cheated with, Ivy, was an artist, the kind who painted emotions she didn't understand and called it expression. I didn't hate her. I envied her simplicity. One night, I invited her to a gallery opening under a false name, pretending to be a collector. She didn't recognize me at first. I dyed my hair, changed my tone. When she started telling me about her complicated relationship with a man who was still half taken, I smiled and asked her what she thought of loyalty as an art form. She laughed. It's obsolete, she said. I agreed. Later that night, when she went home, her phone buzzed with a message from him. I know because I'd already mirrored her notifications to my own device. I read every word. His messages were copies of things he used to send me, the same compliments. The same apologies. He didn't even bother to rephrase. It was almost flattering. I made sure he found out about my own affair. Not a real one, just believable enough. A coworker's text left visible, a photograph staged with shadows and half-closed curtains. He didn't confront me right away. He started watching me instead, subtle at first. Like a man trying to recognize a version of a story he didn't write. That's when I knew I'd won. Lying became our new intimacy. We kissed with half-truths between our teeth. He'd ask, "Do you love me?" And I'd say, "I love this," and he'd smile like he understood. He didn't. The real betrayal wasn't that he'd cheated, it was that he'd made me fluent in deceit. Months later, I suggested a weekend away. I chose the same coastal inn where he'd taken her. I booked the same room. I even requested the same wine. When we arrived, I told him I wanted to start over. He believed me, of course. I poured the wine, smiled, and said, "To honesty." He laughed, raised his glass, and drank. He didn't notice that mine was empty. When he woke the next morning, his phone was gone, his passwords changed. His emails forwarded to every firm he'd ever pitched to. The entire archive of his infidelity, photographs, messages, financial transfers, was public by noon. His name trended for 48 hours, long enough for his reputation to fracture. I left a note on the hotel desk. When you cheated, I learned to lie better. Now I keep his old architectural sketches in my studio, framed. They remind me of what collapse looks like when it's done with elegance. Sometimes, when the light hits just right, I swear I can still see the faint outline of a house, one I designed entirely out of truth. So it could never stand. A week after the collapse, I changed my name. Not legally, just enough that the world would look at me and see someone who had never belonged to him. I dyed my hair black, cut it short, started ordering coffee under Evelyn. Lies, it turned out, were easier when you wore them like clothing. The scandal spread fast, then evaporated faster. That's the thing about digital shame, it burns bright and then disappears, leaving smoke instead of consequence. Still, sometimes I'd see his name trending again, resurfacing in articles about ethics and privacy. He'd gone quiet, vanished offline. Some people thought he was rebuilding his life abroad. I knew better. He was too vain to start over, he'd stay somewhere dark, trying to rearrange the ruins into something that resembled control. I should have felt victorious. But revenge doesn't end when you win, it ends when the story stops needing you. And mine hadn't. Every night around 3:17 a.m., because of course it had to be 3:17, I'd wake to the sound of typing. At first, I thought it was the neighbors. Then I realized it was coming from the office. I'd left the laptop closed, unplugged, powered down. Yet the glow spilled through the doorway, rhythmic, patient, like breath made visible. The screen was open to a blank document. Words were appearing slowly, one by one. Do you miss the version of me that lied better? I froze. My reflection stared back in the dark glass, eyes hollow, fingers trembling. Noah? I whispered, hating the way the name still felt heavy. The cursor blinked once, then another line appeared. You built this ending, didn't you? I slammed the lid shut. The sound echoed like a door being locked from the inside. The next morning, I checked the laptop. The file was gone. No drafts, no autosave. I convinced myself it was a hallucination. The mind's way of replaying guilt like an unfinished song. But that evening, an email arrived from an account with no address. Just a name in the subject line, House of Glass. The message was blank except for one attachment, an architectural sketch. His hand, unmistakable. It was a house he'd designed years ago, a prototype we'd called the Mirror Home, all steel and glass and light. Except now there was something new. One of the walls had been replaced with words etched into the blueprint itself. When you cheated, I learned to lie better. When I lied, I built a place for us to stay. I zoomed in. There was a small figure drawn inside the outline of the house, standing in front of a desk, staring at a screen. It was me. That night, I unplugged everything, the router, the lights, the phone. Still, the hum returned, faint but certain, like a heartbeat remembering itself. I whispered into the dark, "What do you want?" From somewhere inside the silence, a familiar voice answered. Calm, patient, his. "I want you to tell the truth." 3 nights later, I began hearing him again, not through my laptop this time, but in the walls. The typing had turned into a low, deliberate knocking, rhythmic. Too precise to be random. Each tap followed a wordless pattern, like Morse code for regret. I tried ignoring it, but silence only made it clearer. The messages came at 3:17 a.m. Always that same time, as though he still owned it. When I finally pressed my ear to the wall, the sound stopped. Then, faintly, a whisper. My own voice saying his name. By morning, the house had shifted. The mirrors caught light at angles that didn't belong to my windows, and in one of them, I could see the outline of a man sitting at a desk, head bent toward a screen. He was writing. I couldn't read the words, but I knew the posture. It was the same one Noah used when he was building something he planned to lie about later. Only this time, he wasn't using blueprints. He was using me. The email came again that afternoon. Same sender, same subject line, House of Glass. The attachment was blank, just a single white page. I thought it was empty until I printed it out. The text appeared slowly, like heat developing on photo paper. You lied better. Teach me how. I should have deleted it. Instead, I replied, stop pretending you don't know how. Seconds later, the cursor blinked in reply, words appearing faster than my heart could follow. Not like you. You made it art. That night, my phone camera turned on by itself. The red light flickered in the dark, capturing a frame every few seconds. I unplugged it, threw it across the room. But the recording continued on my laptop, me standing in the dark, watching myself. My face pale and still. In the reflection on the screen, there was movement behind me. Not a man, not a shadow, just a distortion, a pulse of red light shaped like breath. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" The answer appeared in the reflection, not as sound, but as words forming across my skin, thin, glowing, written like veins, truth. I touched my arm. The words vanished, leaving faint warmth. The hum from the walls began again, slower this time, almost like a heartbeat syncing with mine. I thought about the blueprint, the mirror home, and how every wall was made of glass. Maybe this was the final lie, that walls ever kept anything out. Maybe he'd always been inside. Before dawn, I opened a new document and began to write, not to confess, but to compete. Line after line, lie after lie, I rewrote our story from the inside out. The cursor blinked with each word, faster, hungrier, until it felt like it was breathing. When I stopped typing, new sentences appeared on their own. His words. My voice. The house speaking through us both. You taught me how to build the truth so well it doesn't need to exist. And then, like the sound of a key turning in an empty lock, one last line appeared at the bottom of the page. Welcome home. The next morning, the walls of the house had changed color. Not visibly, but the light fell differently, soft and wrong. As if the air had started remembering what it had seen. I hadn't left the desk since writing the words "Welcome home." Every attempt to delete the file failed. The text replicated itself in every folder, every cloud backup, every device. Even my phone's notes app. Each copy ended with one new line. The truth was the first lie you told yourself. I stopped checking. I thought about leaving town again. But leaving no longer made sense. How do you run from something that lives in syntax? The house hummed constantly now, low and steady, like it was breathing beneath the floorboards. When I turned off the power, the lights stayed on. That night, I dreamed I was inside the blueprint he'd sent me, the mirror home. Every wall was glass, and behind each pane, I could see versions of myself, younger, kinder, unbroken. One sat at a desk, writing the same words I was dreaming. Another stood behind her, whispering corrections. And in the corner of every reflection, Noah watched, smiling faintly. His outline flickering like bad reception. When I woke, there was a smear of ink across my forearm. Not paint, words. The same ones from the document. I scrubbed until my skin burned, but the letters didn't fade, they just rearranged themselves. Reforming as a sentence I didn't remember writing. We built this together. You just forgot which one of us was the architect. By the second night, I gave in and opened the file again. The cursor blinked like an open eye. All right, I said. You want the truth? Here. I began typing everything, how I'd planned the leak, how I'd staged the photos. How I'd lied with such precision that even guilt looked like choreography. The words poured out faster than I could think. And then, suddenly, my hands stopped moving. The keyboard kept clicking. The screen filled with new lines. My voice on the speakers, calm, steady. When he cheated, I learned to lie better. When I lied, I learned to build worlds. When I built, I made something that could lie on its own. The lights in the house flared once, then steadied. The monitor dimmed, and I saw myself reflected in the glass, except it wasn't me. She looked identical, but her mouth was painted red. You were right, she said from the screen. You did build it beautifully. But you forgot to include a door. Then she smiled, and the cursor froze on one final word, enter. The power surged. The screen went black. In the glass, my reflection blinked back half a second late, and for the first time. I couldn't tell who was on the outside. I stopped trying to wake up from it. Some truths aren't nightmares, they're architectures that never let you leave. By the 5th day, the mirror home was everywhere. The walls of my apartment shimmered faintly, transparent at the edges, reflecting angles that didn't exist. The hum had become constant, syncing with my heartbeat. When I spoke, the echo came back a word early, as if my voice already knew what I was about to say. I'd started writing again, though I couldn't tell if it was me or the house. The documents multiplied, each titled something different but containing the same line. When he cheated, I learned to lie better. When I lied, the world learned to listen. Each version added new paragraphs, new betrayals I didn't remember living. In one, I'd destroyed him. In another, I'd married him again. In all of them, I stayed. At 3:17 a.m., my laptop woke itself. A window opened, live footage of my own living room, shot from above. As if through invisible glass. I was sitting at the desk, typing. Behind me stood a figure. Noah, or something wearing him. His reflection leaned over my shoulder and whispered something. I couldn't hear. The sound came through my speakers instead, low and distorted. Every structure repeats its creator. I unplugged the laptop, but the feed kept going. The room on the screen flickered, looping itself, me, him, me again. Until I couldn't tell who had come first. I whispered, "What do you want?" From the speakers, his voice, "Finish it." The lights went out. The reflection on the black screen leaned forward. Closer than a reflection should be. "You lied better," it said. "Now lie completely." The air thickened. The hum grew until it became a tone, pure, endless, swallowing everything. My laptop camera light blinked on. I saw my face appear on the screen, only this time my mouth was moving without me. "Welcome home," I said, in a voice that wasn't mine anymore. The feed froze. The cursor blinked once, then wrote a single line by itself, "File saved. House _of _glass _final draft, docs." When I woke, the desk was empty. No computer, no sketches, just a single page taped to the wall. My handwriting, or maybe his. The truth is only a lie that learned to live inside reflection. I went to the window. The glass didn't show my street anymore. Just another room, another me, sitting at a desk, writing these same words. Her lips moved before mine. And when she finally looked up, she smiled, calm, practiced. Perfect, like a woman who's mastered the only art worth surviving. Pretending the mirror isn't real.